Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Steady Focused. I'm your host. I'm your number one, Mr. SimeonHendrix. And today I'm honored to have on the show one of the hardest working, most consistent photographers I know, Mr. Torin Halsey. He's the chief photojournalist of our North Texas regional newspaper, the Wichita Falls Times Record News. He's been in the photography game for over 30 years. And it hit me a few days ago that Torin was actually the first person, when I was really getting into photography and hitting some major roadblocks, he was the one I called up and said, Torin, can I take you to lunch and pick your brain? Guys, this man is a legend, and I'm excited to shine the light on his career. Please help me give a big, steady, focused welcome to my friend, Mr. Torin Halsey. Good evening, Torin. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how's it going?
And it's going great. I'm glad you're here.
It's quite a buildup. I don't know if all that's deserved, but whatever.
It's absolutely deserved. I know it is. And it's actually episode 50, and I couldn't think of a better way than to celebrate with you.
Wow, awesome.
So, yeah, man, it's cool. So, Torin, why photography? Why the camera?
Because I can't draw.
Yeah.
No, I found out quite a while back that I thought I could see pictures, or I would see things that I thought would make interesting pictures or photographs or images, and I didn't have a way to put them down on paper with by way of drawing or painting or anything. I didn't have a natural talent for that. But I started thinking about if I had a camera, then maybe I could use that tool to capture what I was seeing in front of me or in my mind.
And so, who was the one that got you into it?
Actually, well, there was actually a buddy of mine who was thinking about buying a camera, and we were young. We were like 18 or 19 years old, and I'd started thinking about it about the same time he said he was thinking about buying a camera for himself. And so I went to the store with him, and we looked at several different models, and I ended up buying one and he didn't. And I was hooked that first day that I held it in my hands. And, before you know it, you're spending all your money on accessories and extra lenses and more equipment and lighting, you name it.
And so how did you transition from some young kid that's got this camera to getting on the newspaper team?
Well, there was a step or two in between. I was actually working at a different career at that point in my life. I was actually technically trained as a meat cutter, and was working in a meat market in a grocery store, and so I had quite a bit of disposable income. I was making pretty good money, and that's when I started buying camera equipment and getting more and more into it, and started reading everything I could get my hands on, and stuff like that. And then a year or two later, the store went out of business, and that's when I kind of was forced to consider whether or not I wanted to change careers and shift gears into try to look for work as a photographer instead of a meat cutter. So I came across this small local magazine that I went to work for, and they were just a kind of a human interest / real estate, / local feature story type of small magazine that survived on advertising alone. And I shot for them for a year or so, and I'd gotten to know the people down at the newspaper, at the Times Record News, through a photography contest that I won, a local photography contest, and the prize was a 2-week internship at the newspaper's photography department. So I even took a week off from my regular job so I could spend as much time as possible down there running around with the photojournalists that worked for the paper and going out on different photo assignments with them and shooting in the studio and learning how to process film and all of those, fun things. And then I heard that one of the photographers at the newspaper was leaving to take another job in another city, and they called me and asked me if I wanted to come to work for them. A couple of days later, I was there. That was in 1984, so a long time ago.
I've realized that I love photojournalists. I love what you guys do. You see it all. You see the highlights of someone's life. You see the horrible pains, football teams. You see, the sports, the highlights, the pain, all of it. So when you kind of think back over this 30-year stretch, what's some of the light bulb moments that jump out as your peaks and your valleys?
There's been so many over the years. It's really hard to choose. But like you said, there is a huge variety in the different subject matters that a photojournalist in a town this size, working for a newspaper this size, that we run into. And during any given day, I might be shooting fashion or news or sports or features or all the above. And sometimes your work gets into spot news with, a plane crash or a car pileup or a house fire or something like that, or a shooting. There's lots of adrenaline moments that come with a job like this. And then there's some fun things where you get to shoot, beautiful women in fashion shoots and fun things like that, and be down on the sidelines at professional sporting events, shooting the Dallas Cowboys or Texas Rangers games and things like that. So it's been a really wonderful situation to be in, where you really get to see a wide variety of subject matter, whether it's architectural photography, if you're taking pictures of a building for some reason, or a big trial or something like that, things with lots of importance, and then other times you may be backstage or front row at a concert with a big name performer, A-listers or actors or musicians and things like that. It's in addition to all the variety that a job like this provides, I also have a photography services business that I do on the side in my off time, that I started just a year or so after I started at the newspaper, and that business is what I call Photos by Torin. I did a lot of wedding photography years ago, and studio portrait work, children's portraiture, couples portraiture, event photography. There's just a huge variety when you stop and think that everywhere you look, there are images, and somebody has to create those images. And it's usually a professional photographer with a nice camera.
When you're with the newspaper, what's your typical camera lens setup? When I see you around, it seems like you have two on your holster.
Yeah, generally most photojournalists are shooting with a 2-camera setup, and they'll have a wide-angle zoom on one camera and a telephoto zoom on another. That's pretty much the basic photojournalistic setup. And my wide angle, I shoot the Nikon D5, which is their flagship camera, top of the line.
Awesome.
And it's a beautiful piece of equipment, and does everything and more that you can ask of it. And my lens, my wide angle lens of choice, is the 24 to 70 millimeter wide angle lens with an f2.8 aperture.
Yes.
Constant aperture.
Yes.
And it is a full frame 35 millimeter digital SLR, so there's no conversion factor.
Yeah.
And then on the other camera, the telephoto setup is the 70 to 200 millimeter telephoto zoom with vibration reduction and all that, constant 2.8 aperture, and it is just a beautiful lens.
You are so with your settings, do you shoot a lot in aperture priority or you go shutter priority or is it full manual?
It just kind of depends on,
Because it's so quick.
yeah. Aperture priority is pretty helpful in the majority of situations, but as soon as I feel like things may be getting a little need me to pay a little more attention, I'll switch over to manual and keep an eye on the meter and roll with the punches there.
When I remember as I was preparing for this interview, when we had sat down for lunch a couple of years ago, you were talking about coaching the younger guys coming up, and it was something about telling them, hey, make sure you come back with at least one photo to tell the story. And so it got me thinking, like, what is it like now that you are the chief and you have guys below you? And I mean, you still have to nail it out and you still do a lot of assignment, but what's it like being, the teacher, the mentor, talking and training up?
Well, that's I guess that's just something that's naturally evolved. I mean, when I started at the newspaper, I was the low guy on the totem pole. I was the one asking all the questions and learning how to deal with deadlines and sketchy situations and there back then we were shooting film, so there was always something else that could go wrong, and you only had a 36 exposure roll of film to capture it before you had to stop what you were doing and change out, rewind the roll of film and put in another one and get it ready to shoot and start shooting again. So, it's kind of funny to think of how far we've come with the digital age, but yeah, with the different experience, like I said, I've just kind of stayed pretty constant as working as a photojournalist for the newspaper, and I've seen a lot of people come and go, and as they've left, I've moved up the ladder, and I've been chief photographer there for about 11 years now. But and then the younger photographers that have come to work at the newspaper, I'll gladly share what advice I can and whenever they ask questions and because believe me, over a 30 plus year career, I've seen a lot of different situations, so I can usually tell them probably what they're going to find whenever they go out on a general assignment. What to look for, what they're going to see, and what they better come back with to cover their rear ends if nothing else.
What is one of those big mistakes that you have, in the back of your mind? Because I have absolutely done it. And what I like to do on the show is bring in experts and, just say, hey, they're human, and we've all made mistakes. And like you're saying, so what is one of those moments when your heart just sunk because you thought, oh my gosh?
Oh man, one of the ones I remember from way back, like I said, when we were shooting film, we used to have the editor of the newspaper, the top dog in the newsroom. He was a big, tall, imposing fellow with a booming voice, and he used to write a car review every week, and the different dealerships would loan him a car to drive for the week, and then he would write he'd write a review about it on what he felt about the car. And occasionally, if there wasn't a photographer available when he needed it, he had also taken pictures earlier in his career, and he would shoot a couple of pictures with his camera of the vehicle and drop off the film in the darkroom for us to process. And I destroyed his roll of film one time.
Oh no.
So as a young photographer, destroying the boss's work was not a good day, but he must have been having a good day, and it didn't seem to faze him much, and he just sent me out the next day with the car to get more pictures. But other times there was one time whenever I was working in my studio for a paying customer, and I had arrived a few minutes late for their photo session, and they had gotten together two or three different people on in the middle of their busy day, and I had taken the pictures at the wrong settings. And again, this is back when it was film, and I didn't sync up my camera with the studio lights, and basically the pictures were worthless. They were completely overexposed, and again, that's something you don't find out until a few hours later, whenever the film is developed. So I call up the client and we reschedule, and I blew it again.
Oh no.
So there's been low spots in my career, but thankfully they were understanding, and they were a regular client of mine, and they remained a regular client, and gave me one more chance to make it right, and they were thrilled with the pictures in the end. So yeah, there's times whenever you have to really stop and pay attention to what you're doing. Don't let the distractions and the going on around you. Just remember the basics. Don't let all the buzz and the hum of the outside world get in your head sometimes, and prevent you from doing a good job.
I mean, so you're in such a fast-paced world. I'm in the fast-paced world in marketing as well. And I mean, do you have okay, do you have a routine you do? Say, okay, I'm going to do a 5-second countdown. Because a lot of times you show up and there's 10, 20, 50 people, they're all going crazy, and you got to make sure you nail the shot. So how do you calm yourself down enough to do your thing?
Well, that's just one of the things you have to do. You have to kind of block out, some of the things that are going on. Your head needs to be on a swivel. You need to be, looking at all the different factors that are going to affect what you're about to do, and disregard the things that don't, that aren't included, and focus on the things that are, and kind of figure out what your priorities are on what you want to accomplish, and make sure you get those done. There's a kind of there's a mantra kind of with some photographers, that you want to get the pictures, that the CYA pictures, if you'll pardon my French, the ones that cover your ass, the ones that you have to come back with the basic shots. And once you've got those that are going to work, if you did nothing else, then you can get a little bit more creative and do some of the pictures that you might like. If there's an art director and they want you to do this and get this shot and get that shot, you get those shots, and then you try to give them a little bit more. You try to give them a little bit more creativity, or something that they hadn't thought of, or a different angle, or different lighting setup, or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. You try to throw in a little bit extra, and see if you can't give them a little bit of a wow factor, and maybe they'll come back and ask for you the next time.
Yeah. Torin, this is what I've got. These are basically my questions. I just want to open the floor up to you, and anything else you want to say or share. We got a lot of young, I would say young or green photographers are tuning in, and so words of inspiration are always helpful and appreciated.
Well, Simeon, the things that we were talking about earlier about fast-paced lifestyles, and fast-paced work environments, and the hectic situations. There's in addition to my work with photojournalism and for the newspaper, and in addition to the work that I do for different clients and ad agencies and so forth with my photography services business, there's actually a third aspect of photography in my life, and that's my art photography. I don't get a lot of time to shoot for just myself, but when I do, it's something that I do for me, and I'm the client, and it's basically trying to create artistic images that I find pleasing. You can almost guarantee that whatever my subject matter is, it's going to be old and worn and weathered, and the paint's probably cracked on it, and it's probably rusty, and it may be an old door or an old window that's broken. I love, love, love old things that have seen many, many years on this earth. And a lot of times, I'll kind of think in the back of my mind, what was this house like, or what was this, this building like, or this old car that's sitting out in a field, or, what was it like the day it rolled off the assembly line, all bright and shiny and new, and somebody drove it home for the first time, or if it's a little old farmhouse out on a prairie or something, and it's practically fallen down now. But what was it like the day that the family that built this moved in? There's some sort of a connection there that I feel, and I like to document it with my camera, and ultimately make prints and frame them, and I've been fortunate enough to show in galleries and museums around the area.
So from that point of view, what do you think, or how would you say the importance of personal projects are to a photographer, following just those passion projects that they just need to push out?
I think that they're vital. It proved vital in my situation. I just started doing that probably, really concentrating on it about 10 or 12 years ago. And before that, I would say that I was in danger of feeling burnout.
Yes.
I was working at 40, 50 hours a week with the newspaper, and, another 20, 15 or 20 hours a week with my business, and if not more. And it seemed like I was always trying to serve somebody else.
And still not getting the shot that you were seeking.
Right. And I would see something on the way to a photo shoot, that I thought, oh man, I would love to photograph that, but I don't have time. I've got a client waiting on me, or I've got an assignment that I've got to go to, or something like that. And several years ago, I just started blocking out time in my day or on my weekends or whatever it took, and started stopping to take those pictures that I wanted to take for me. And I started doing that deliberately, and a year later I had my first photo exhibition. I can't tell you how much that's really helped the other aspects of my career, being able to get kind of center myself and do a little bit to nurture the creativity within myself.
Awesome. Amen, dude. I'm glad you said that. That's a great point. Torin, where can people find you online if they want to check out some of your portfolio or get in touch with you?
Well, as far as the photojournalism part, you can subscribe to the Times Record News.com and see a lot of my daily work there. But as far as my business, I go by Photos by Torin, and it's photosbytorin.com on my website, and I'm also on Twitter and Instagram. Check out Photos by Torin on social media, and kind of see what I'm up to whenever I'm trying to, not please anyone else but me.
There you go. So guys, there you have it. This has been episode number 50 of Steady Focused. It's been an honor to have Mr. Torin Halsey on with us today. So guys, until next time, I'm your host. I'm your number one, Mr. SimeonHendrix. And this is Steady Focused.